Taxation Without Representation, a modern story. I am a 17-year-old male who, since his 16th birthday, has been working for the U.S. government as a lifeline. Since day one, I've paid my taxes, income, and sales, just like my parents, but there is one dire difference. They had a voice in our government. When you look at the things that teenage guys and girls, 17 and 16, are allowed to do, their voting disenfranchisement seems even more ridiculous. You can serve a life sentence in prison, you can join the military, drive cars, be questioned by the police without a parent, and you do pay sales tax and income if you were working. When you look at these things, it really shows you how messed up it is that we don't get a say in the laws that go into these things happening. It's quite ridiculous. The first argument you could make was that teens pay taxes. Any working 16 or 17-year-old pays income tax just like anyone else in the government, anyone else in the voting system. So if you're putting money into this huge project of our government, wouldn't you want to make sure that you had your say in how the money was spent and that we could do it correctly? You could have your say of what your money was doing. Anything less than that is, frankly, stealing. Merriam-Webster defines stealing as to take something that does not belong to you in a way that is wrong. To me, taking my hard-earned income for something that I get no say in is fundamentally wrong. Life sentences. Teens can be tried as adults and sentenced to a life in prison before they can even vote. How can we say that they were given a fair trial when their opinions didn't go into creating the laws that are going to send them to prison? It's essentially wrong. It's the same thing as if you went to Portugal, per se, and were arrested for a crime that you had nothing to do with. Well, I won't say that you didn't have anything to do with. For a law that you had no idea that was made, and you were kept captive there for the entirety of your life. That's the same thing as a 17-year-old male being held prisoner for a law that he didn't agree with. There are several arguments against youth suffrage, however. Your maturity level often comes into question. Your lack of responsibility and your lack of education. The maturity level and the lack of interest. This is what people usually quote when they are not in support of this. They say that teens are not mature enough to make the decisions that are required to vote. And that is ridiculous. There's an old saying that says, if you want to know the girth of your country, speak to the average voter, and this is exactly right. A 17-year-old man coming out, or woman, I keep saying man, coming out of high school has probably as much education as the average voter. Most teens work and have responsibilities at home. They have brothers and sisters they have to take care of. They have a lot going on. They're graduating, looking to college. They have a lot of responsibility at home. They can make the decision of who they think best represents them in, say, Congress, legislature, president. They also say that we wouldn't even show up to the polls. With the voting turnout so low, 57% in 2012 for the presidential election, it's a little hypocritical for you to say that my generation, who is not allowed to vote at all, just wouldn't show up. That's a little hypocritical. A lack of responsibility. It's also quoted that teens just don't have the fiscal responsibility to be voting. We haven't paid rent. We don't pay for the electric and heating. But again, we don't look when we're looking at whether you can be in a voting enfranchisement or to whether or not you pay rent or take care of your children. For if we did, there would be far fewer voters that do go. Because several adults that I know in my personal life don't take care of their children or pay their rent. This just isn't a solid stance for you to have. In conclusion, I'm going to propose you a situation. Canada this year will propose an 8% sales tax on everything you buy. Let's call it the snow tax. You had no say in how that was created. It's coming from a foreign government to you. But you have to pay it or you'll go to prison. This is exactly how every teen feels who is working. Our income is stripped from us by a government that we have no say in how that tax was created. In the past, Americans have fought wars to overthrow those who withheld their right to vote, and today the same oppression continues. In the 1800s, it was ridiculous that black people would ever vote. In the 1920s, it was ridiculous that women would ever vote. And today, the same oppression continues. Thanks. Turn the camera on. Thanks so much. Rock.